Hello and welcome back to THM, and I'm pulling it back to basics today. I've had a look at the videos and the best performing one by far was manufacturers that you want to see back in the British Touring Car Championship. I think that's on about 1,700 views roughly at time of recording. So I'm going to jump back into that because of course there are plenty of manufacturers that have come, gone and perhaps not even bothered entering the British Touring Cars. So I'm going to have a look at a few more today and see what you think. Now, a couple of things before we get going. Number one, make sure you head over to Racerline Designs. You've got a special discount code which has been on the screen now and for the last, well, couple of seconds. And also, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. We're heading up to 200 subs. Help us out, click the button. Let's jump into the video. Now, first of all, I've gone for a manufacturer which had great success in various motorsports, but not so much in the British Touring Cars, that being Peugeot. Now, throughout the 90s and early 2000s, especially during the Super Touring days, they entered a factory team, put plenty of money behind it, had some really good drivers, Paul Radisich, Rob Gravitt, Patrick Watts, Tim Harvey, Steve Soper, all these kind of guys and more, which spring to mind. But they've never had no luck against the big, really powerhouses of the days, like your BMW factory teams, your Ford, so on and so forth. Just didn't quite have the money to get over the line and get any race wins. But I think they'll do well if they come back. They've got a couple of cars which they can use. They've got like an estate Audi 508 Saloon, which our friends over at 5JH Designs has kindly let us use, as always. Make sure you go and check them out on Facebook. They're awesome. But yeah, have a look at this one then, see what you think. I think the cars look absolutely wicked. They wouldn't look out of place on a touring car grid. There's not a lot of manufacturers really throwing mega money behind the cars and British touring car programs like they did back in the 90s. So I think that's what didn't get Peugeot over the line, is that they wanted a factory team but didn't want to throw millions and millions and millions of pounds like the Williams Renault team, the ProDrive Ford, so on and so forth. So if they come now in a lot lower spend than what was in the 90s, I think they could do really well. Now, I like to try and mix these up a little with teams that have been in the British touring cars and manufacturers which haven't bothered entering yet. And this be one of them. A really rapidly growing manufacturer in the UK, especially over the last few years, is Kia. They've got some really great cars, in fairness. You know, you think of the Sportage, the Rio, the Proceed, and the Kia Stinger GT, which is a really awesome car. So their market in the UK is growing rapidly at the moment. Now, in order to bring it to that next level, they could probably do a bit of exposure, enter the British Touring Car Championship. Now, they could run the Proceed, which is the longer, almost estate shooting brake style car, or the Stinger GT, which is kind of 3 Series-ish shape, but a bit bigger. Again, the cars look wicked. 5JH Designs have done another amazing job putting these liveries together. And I really think for a brand which is really blossoming in the UK at the moment, just that extra step to get them on TV every other weekend could really help them out loads. Next up, we're back to a brand which has been in the touring cars again through the period of the 90s, and that be Renault. They've had their brilliant drivers, they've had their Harveys, their Hoys, their Platos, their Menus, all champions of British touring cars. And they won the title themselves in the late 90s with the Williams F1 team preparing the cars. They now also, on a side note, anyone of a particular age will remember that the Renault Laguna splitter fitted on any car whatsoever. So it'd be great to see Renault back and their splitters finding their way onto any car you could possibly imagine. Anyway, they have a TCR car at the moment, the Megane. It looks really awesome. Now, for this one, I'm just going to ping up a couple of liveries. They're all retro inspired, whether it be Formula 1 or British touring car entrants. I don't need to say any more about this. Look at this Megane and just look how sick it looks. They're already in TCR, like I say. Bring them over to the touring cars. For those in their early 20s, this car here will either be your hero or the bane of your life. This is a Vauxhall Astra Coupe, which just destroyed everything in the early 2000s. Now, of course, Vauxhall goes way back before this particular Astra. First starting off in the 80s with an Astra, then to a Cavalier, then to a Vectra. Now, towards the end of the Super Touring regulations, Vauxhall started very early preparing their new generation of touring cars, which was started in 2001. And that's where this thing came from. It was ridiculous and it won pretty much everything. Now, after this, they ran another Astra and a couple of Vectras as well. But their kind of factory support has been dropping significantly, all the way down to nothing a few years ago, which is a shame. Now, they could enter the Insignia, which has a couple of photographs on now, equally with some retro liveries as well. Now, for me, I'm not sure how much this will actually work or would work, but for me, like I say, growing up, Vauxhall was the team to beat. So now watching Btcc without a fully fledged works Vauxhall team is a little bit, it all feels a bit naked. Feels like having a phone without a case on. It just doesn't feel right. So let's get Vauxhall back in. The cars look wicked as always. Finally, I need to apologise for the photographs on this one because the car wasn't run for too long and it was crap. So there's not many good photos. That being Mazda, again, like I say, I think was a little bit like Peugeot in the sense that they wanted to enter in the Super Touring when British Touring Cars was arguably at its peak, but didn't quite have the money to pull it off and really kind of go at the big boys. Now, they had some good drivers, Patrick Watts, Matt Neal, David Leslie, just to name three, which rolled off my tongue without thinking twice about it. And like I say, they didn't do too well. It's a bit of a crash and burn, their particular entry. But they could race the car now. They got a couple of models which would look pretty cool. Once again, 5JH Designs have knocked up what Mazda's entry could look like if they were to enter now. And it's, of course, a hatchback. And it looks pretty cool, to be fair. I think it looks good. And we've got one here, which is the legendary rotary Mazda entrant into Le Mans, which we've used their livery on a touring car. And again, this looks sick. Now, for those of you which are particularly good at maths, you will notice that I normally only do 5 selections. But for those who follow me on Twitter especially know that I do have a little bit of a soft spot for the old Proton Impian, which is on screen now, which ran in the early 2000s. The car was pretty awful, to be honest, but I just think it looked sick. And like I say, growing up watching these, you kind of always spurred the underdogs on. And, you know, most people thought Proton was in like a bloody atom. No one even knew that they made cars back then. But here's a few photographs of what their entrant could look like. It would never happen because they're not sold in the UK anymore, and touring car regulations say it must be sold in the UK in order to participate. Almost didn't get my words out there. But I think it looks cool. Let us know exactly what you think in the comments down below, and let me know if there's any more manufacturers that I've missed out of part 1 and part 2. See if I can make a part 3. As always, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll speak to you next time. See you later.